Look back at the first art you were ever proud of. Did your parents obsess and coo over it? Were you excited by it? And most importantly, wasn't it kind of bad? This question and many more are reflected upon in my favorite game in 3 years, Chicory, A Colorful Tale. I found myself quite shocked at just how good of a game it is, considering that I haven't seen Chicory being talked about extensively around indie game circles, but the story beats, characters, and sheer creativity on display from the developer left me in awe, becoming a massive inspiration for my goals as a creator of art variety in the future. A Colorful Tale takes place in a world where color is not a natural phenomenon. Instead, it originates from a singular, magical paintbrush, passed down each generation to a new wielder responsible for coloring the entirety of the world. That's right, the leaves on the trees, your curtains, your underpants, all colored by that one individual. And you, my dear friend, are the legendary Chicory. He's a janitor, who one day finds the brush abandoned on the ground and lets the intrusive thoughts win. The journey of our protagonist, named Pizza by the wiki and nowhere in the game because you named them, mine was named Sushi, led me to a tremendous number of welcome surprises, ranging from quelling my concerns about the game running out of interesting mechanics, and believe me, there are dozens of incredibly clever and interesting uses of the core mechanic, including bullet hell boss fights and some of the most wholesome and well thought out character writing that I've seen in games ever. There were at least a dozen points throughout the story in which the mechanics and narrative combine to find myself grinning at the warmest interactions of Picnic's denizens as characters connected with each other through a variety of artistic mediums, from painting to cooking, singing, and even the art of community service. The different characters of the world all feel interconnected, with relationships, goals, and brazen personalities on display in both their words and their actions, especially those between the two main characters, our protagonist Pizza, and the titular wielder Chicory. Overall, I give this game a gold star for mechanics and fun, a diamond star for story and atmosphere, a platinum star for time and cost, another platinum star for musicality, and the certification of being truly Paint Liquor approved. With an overall recommendation that, if you haven't played this game yet, then for the love of God, stop watching this video and play this masterpiece. This is a labor of love rivaling Spirited Away, tainted only by the fact that as the dog, you cannot pet the dog. Cause that would be weird. So, now that the overall review is done, let's get back to the reason you clicked this video. The wonder of being bad at art. For context, and minor spoilers here, but not enough to ruin the game, the main conflict of A Colorful Tale is that the current wielder, Chicory, who is also Pizza's greatest idol, has fallen to severe burnout and depression, much like the stock market. As such, the color of the world, a world composed entirely of their art, has lost all of its color. This is hinted at long before we actually meet Chicory, as Pizza finds himself in several conversations in which people lambast Chicory as a wielder, something that seems well out of line with what Pizza has told the player about their idol until we meet the hero ourselves, finding an archetype that I would describe as a depressed grad school burnout, which was actually surprisingly accurate to the plot. And to be clear, this is an understatement of Chicory's mental state at this time. She gives us the magical brush, legendary artifact of old, simply because she sees it as an escape from her life she's trapped in, and for no other reason. A purely selfish, defensive action made by someone who feels trapped and is desperately looking for a way out. And this is really important because of how the game uses the famed Chicory as a juxtaposition to our sunflower of a protagonist, because Chicory views herself as an unequivocal failure and fraud. Well, our actually fraudulent wielder doesn't blink for a second at the fact that they have no business at all being the wielder of a magical paintbrush. In spite of their lack of qualifications, and the fact everyone knows they're not a quote-unquote real artist, Pizza carries on to keep striving in this foreign field. They want to help people, and they don't mind the fact that their creativity isn't professional, and neither do the world's other inhabitants for the most part. People aren't angry that Pizza isn't a master wielder. They aren't angry that the design for holies suck, or angry that the best work of the legendary artist amounts to the drawing of a shrimp. Instead, the people of this land simply appreciate the creation that's on display, viewing this new wielder as someone to be encouraged, and also viewing Pizza as a little bit of an errand monkey. Now, while you could complete the entire game in just a few hours, it took me nearly 18 plus another 3 to 100% it because of the way the game's mechanics subtly encourage the player to engage in Pizza's own enthusiasm for amateur art. To the point that I spent a lot of minutes just recreating a single painting by the end of the game for no reward except the satisfaction of making art. The game's mechanics reinforce this amateur art as well, limiting the player to using a single color for most of the game's objects, as well as a low resolution and limited color palette, in a way that makes the user need to think through how to take their vision to fruition. You don't have enough shades of green to have a separate one for the trees and a separate one for the grass, or enough shades of blue. You don't even have a shade of blue, and there's water here, and you've got to figure that out. And I think it's wonderful, actually. I think a lot of AAA titles would have gone for making the mechanic look impressive, no matter what the player does. Splash a color here, you get a rainbow and a prism and smooth, high-resolution graphics. But instead, Chicory requires that you make yourself happy with the tools and the skills that you likely have. You're not even trusted to pick colors until you get almost entirely through the game. And what skills you do have, those are the same skills as Pizza, someone with no business being responsible for the color of an entire world or even just making two-dimensional art. And it tasks you with finding joy and satisfaction in what you're doing anyway. The writing itself also leverages the most cliché of all artistic licenses in just the most delightful manner, because it's one that I've found in my own experience to be the absolute most critical for any aspiring artist, which is the interest in art of any quality that your family and friends are going to take up. In-game, Pizza has parents. And just like your own parents, they hang up your first crummy, terrible art on the wall, and they adore it just because it's a piece of what their child has created. And as Pizza goes on to befriend Chicory over the course of the story, Chicory creates a masterpiece portrait of Pizza and absolutely refuses to show you it until Pizza makes a portrait in turn. A portrait that Chicory goes to hang on their wall and treasures for the rest of the game. Your sister is also adamantly supportive of your art regardless of the critics, and Pizza starts to run into the occasional hyperfan. And overall, the denizens of Picnic have a really important message, which is to be able to appreciate art even if it's bad, even if it's not comparable to what they're used to consuming on the internet or on TV, the professional works they see. It's something that I found particularly important as it goes directly into my own efforts as an amateur game designer, 3D modeler, musician, miniature painter, most recently game reviewer, and a couple of others, because while I have more hobbies than I can shake a stick at this point, the simple fact is that for all of them I started off really sucking. Awful. I'm sure this video isn't that great itself, but if you look back at my channel, you can see how far my editing and audio palettes has come from Indigo Park and definitely not 4K. Which itself is a reference to the fact my first attempt at doing Let's Play ended with a video that couldn't even be used because I tried recording it in 4K and that was absolutely not happening. Or, you know, the way in which even looking or thinking of the first song I composed makes me want to run away from the cringe of the awful music, or the fact I can't animate worth a damn, or the way in which the first game I ever created had such bad lighting problems that playtesters were actively begging me to fix it to save their eyes. Just imagine if you're playing a game and every 15 seconds the sun teleports 40 degrees across the horizon. That's not an exaggeration. But that is where I started. The only thing I wish Chicory had added to its story was to show us what Chicory's first art looked like. We get to see our own first art, which is wonderful, but where did Chicory start? Wasn't her first art terrible? Being a child aspiring to be an artist, to be the legendary wielder of her generation? They would have started off just as bad at art as you or I are. And that's okay. When you're comparing yourself to other artists, especially when you're new, but even when you're not, you're comparing yourself to people who have been doing that art, maybe even that specific style, for decades. And if you haven't done this before, then I have a challenge for you. Go pick your favorite artist, your favorite YouTuber, your favorite streamer, your favorite musician, your favorite book writer, and see what the oldest work you can find of them are. It's going to be hard in some cases, like books, but if you go look up Markiplier, he's got videos that are ancient on there, and they are not that good. Same with my favorite artist Aviators, who I can look back on their music and soothe my soul knowing that they were also bad at music once. That I'm comparing myself to someone with 500 songs under their belts, and I, soon to be 3, maybe 4. The fact is, all the stuff I've ever created began by sucking at it, and all the stuff that you've consumed online, people started off by sucking at it. Maybe you love the art because it was part of them, but oh, you show that to a crowd, they're gonna have some opinions about you, Mr. Got stick figures pinned on the fridge. If you are someone who has ever wanted to be a creative of any medium, then both I and this game's creator, Greg Lebanov, we implore you to have the courage to let your art be seen even when it's bad, even when critics come, because even the bad art is your art. Because it doesn't have value to the critics, but it has value to the most important people in your life, yourself included. And that, dear audience, is what Chicory, A Colorful Tale, is all about. Thank you for attending the first analysis of Love, a kind of review video that I've thought of doing for a long time, actually. I'm really enjoying making this one, and I think I'll be doing many more in the future, as I've been trying to figure out a good creative style for the internet. So, well, we'll see where that goes. And truth be told, I could and will gladly gush on about this game for hours on end. From its familiar themes of depression and burnout, love of friends and family, and having one of the best LGBTQ relationships ever written. But if you want to see me gush over those, then feel free to watch my entire playthrough of the game linked here, or to catch me live on Twitch Sunday and Monday nights. Until then, I'll see you next time a game makes my soul squeal with joy. So to you, my wonderful audience, I bid you adieu.